asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste everyone. Last class we did the sixth mantra, isn't it? The sixth verse of Laghu Vakya Vritti. See, there is one very important idea associated with this verse, which I would like to pinpoint here. He has given us the concept of intrinsic existence very clearly by saying that consciousness belongs to the Atman alone. Everything may appear to be conscious. You know, this is the characteristic example given in while explaining this, what is called intrinsic existence, that water heated on fire acquires heat. So does heat belong to the water? No, it belongs to the fire. You can boil a number of things in that water. Maybe you are boiling vegetables. So does heat belong to the vegetable? No, it belongs only to the fire. So then we say heat is the intrinsic property of fire alone, not of the other things. Intrinsic property means that which doesn't change. The vessel which you are heating, you see, it can acquire heat, it can lose heat. You remove it from the fire, it loses heat. The vegetables you are boiling can acquire heat, they can lose heat. But fire itself can never lose heat. So then, heat is the intrinsic property of fire. So also, consciousness is the intrinsic property of the Atman alone. And it does not belong to anything else, neither the mind nor the body. They get enlivened or conscious due to the presence of the Atman. Just like how the vessel and the vegetables, they become hot because of the fire under them. And not this example Sri Ramakrishna gives in the gospel. By themselves, they don't have heat. So also by itself, nothing has consciousness. Nothing is conscious. It is conscious due to the presence of Brahman. Now try to understand this in your own system. Is it true or not? See, the mind is jada. If you actually watch your mind and see, it is not self-aware. You become aware of the mind, of the happenings in your mind, isn't it? So this is such an interesting phenomenon. Please see. You become aware of the happenings in your mind and not the other way around. Which means mind is an object of your perception. So it is jada, it is not chaitanya. Whatever is an object is inert, yeah. It is not conscious by itself. It can borrow consciousness, reflect a certain amount of awareness, and then it appears to be conscious. So that's when we call it the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, the unconscious. We have all this, you know. They are actually not yogic ideas, these three levels, conscious, subconscious. And because in yoga it was always insisted, entire mind has to be brought to the conscious plane. By making the mind so very transparent and clear that it reflects the entire light of the Atman. So concepts of subconscious and unconscious are not that way encouraged in yoga psychology. Shuddha man. Wahi man hai, jo shuddha hai. The rest is, well, it's just an instrument which is not working, not functioning. It is looked at like that. So, but when do we say a mind is, well, only partially conscious or unconscious? When it is highly cluttered. It hardly can reflect the inner light. And it has all sorts of complexes. That's when the entire energy of the mind is, it's just going around in whirlpools. So then it can reflect minimal light. Such a mind will become dull and more inert. So you see, intrinsic property of Atman is consciousness and not of mind. Mind we'll take questions towards the end. Mind cannot become conscious by itself. Because if it could, there would not be these changing states in it. The density of the mind determines the amount of awareness it can reflect. And if it reflects more awareness, it appears brighter. This is what we call intelligence in this culture. Intelligence is not memory. Intelligence is not being able to acquire and hold 1,000 things. That way, Google is better than all this form of intelligence. That's what I said yesterday, that when artificial intelligence really comes full time, you will dispense with holding things in your memory. Because what's the need? Isn't it? Yes. That's why memory is not intelligence. But memory is something, it's a capacity of your mind. And again, as long as the mind is, less cluttered, it can hold back a number of things. But the essential light in your mind, which retains or which flashes insights, that is the light of awareness. If the mind is not aware to the depths of its being, it cannot be really intelligent. So this is the meaning of intrinsic existence. So intrinsic existence, consciousness and bliss belong to the Atman alone. Everything else is borrowing from there and appearing to be conscious, appearing to be happy, appearing to have life. Test and see in your own system if this is true or not. See, when I say I am very happy or I am full of energy, what exactly is happy and exuding energy? Yes, the mind which has cleared and able to reflect the light of the Atman. Because you see, these are things which belong only to the Atman. The mind is borrowing directly from there. Indriyas also can borrow. Your eyes may appear very bright, your hearing and everything is, very good. Indriyas can also borrow, but they are all functioning on borrowed light. They don't have properties of consciousness and existence as intrinsic to them. They are all functioning on borrowed light, just like the moon example which she gave. It appears so bright, but is light an intrinsic property of the moon? No, it is borrowing it from the sun. Mind, indriyas, everything, your entire equipment is borrowing the light of awareness from the Atman. It is borrowing the light and appearing to be bright. So you say, I feel happy, I feel deeply aware. It's all mentally reflected awareness and happiness. So intrinsic property has to be understood. When it is borrowed, you call it extrinsic property. Mind has extrinsic property of consciousness, existence and bliss. Now this is to be captured in a state of inner stillness and meditation. Then you can actually capture this, how it is happening. Then I will learn to understand the source of happiness. Otherwise, I will keep thinking happiness, somewhere either in the object or in the mind. That's where it lies. I'll have no other idea of a source of happiness. So you have to capture this entire thing in your meditation. Then only it is possible to understand the depth of these verses. Once you capture it in meditation, then you will know that, whether there is an object in my life or not, whether there is somebody in my life or not, I can be very, very happy. And these are all, you can say, you can bring them into your life, no problem. But you should not depend on them for your happiness, because what's the guarantee they will be with you permanently? All the time, catering to your needs, your happiness. No, nobody does that for anybody. We must learn to become independent from within. Vedanta gives you this freedom and independence. But to the extent you have discovered this for yourself, otherwise always the mind, it is smeared by Maya. So it is deluding us. It actually superimposes the reflected light on the object and gives credit to the object. This is the nature of the mind. It will say, due to that object you are happy. This is superimposition actually, adhyas occurring. But usually we are not in a position to understand this working of the mind. But in states of inner clarity and stillness, you can understand this phenomenon. That is why you see, Shankaracharya's works, always he will insist that know the Atman. Then only you will know the source of your existence and happiness. Until then, you will live, you are not sure of your knowledge. It will be like that. Jaded intellect. So that is why these verses, we have to internalize them and realize them. That is the essential point. Just now Shravan is going on, it's okay. It's only the first step. Then should come Manan and Nididhyasan. In Nididhyasan, you will understand the glory of this. If there is no Nididhyasan, well, I told you it will be a vritti in your mind, get blown away by another vritti. Let's go to verse number 7. Rupadau guna doshadi vikalpa buddhiga kriyaha ta kriya vishayai sardham bhasayanti chitir mata. Very nicely he uses words. See, guna doshadi vikalpa, which means all the dualities of life, the notions of good and bad, right and wrong, all of these, and rupadau, objects of senses, which have form, shape, everything that you perceive through the senses. These are all kriya buddhiga. These are all activities of your intellect. The chiti, the pure consciousness, it is considered, mata means it is considered that the pure consciousness, bhasayanti ta, it illumines those activities of your intellect, those kriya, and sardham together vishaye, along with the objects of the senses. It is not only illumining your equipment from within, it also illumines the objects of your perception. The consciousness that you are is doing all this. Just by its presence, it illumines. Here, the light which we are talking of is the light of awareness. Not any kind of a torch light, LED light. No, it's the light of awareness. You become aware in degrees. And that light, the source of it is the Atman. See, if you try to, I'll find the Atman. If you take it like that, you will never find it as an object. Because your I is the Atman. So how to find the Atman then? You must learn to become systematically more conscious from within yourself. When that consciousness percolates through your system, you call that life. But if you are not deep, if you don't become deeply conscious, see, this is how you realize Vedanta. How do you know the Atman? Is it a light somewhere shining that you will see it? Who will see it? You are only that. So no question of seeing it. No question of knowing it even. As you become more and more systematically conscious, deeply conscious, you will go to the source of that consciousness. And then you understand, you always were that. Now you are that and you will always be that. And your identification with the body and mind is by choice, not by default. Just like how our identification with our cloth, the clothes we are wearing, is by choice, isn't it? I may not care for it. I may not choose to identify with it. Or I can be terribly identified with it as if it's a Shashtam Kosh. It's a 6th Kosha. 5 Koshas are not enough for us. So like that, you are identified by choice. Not in the very nature of things, you are not identified with this equipment. Because actually speaking, you are hardly conscious of your body. Are you? Unless there's some pain or ache somewhere, you don't remember the body at all. Unless you are made to remember, you don't remember. You are so made, you are always self-aware, but rarely identified with the body. In fact, you are more identified with your thoughts. Isn't this true, what I am saying? This is the actual, see, this is what is called existential analysis, analyzing the bare facts of your own existence. This will bring you to Vedanta, naturally. Do you require some book to tell you you exist and you are a self-aware entity? You don't require. It's your own experience always. You are always self-aware, occasionally identified with the thoughts of your mind and very rarely identified with the body. But you have assumed you are the body. And we have also created a culture which makes us assume that all the more. So you see the error, if you actually think deeply about this, you will see it as a huge error in our mind. This is how it is seen in Vedanta, you know. It is a miscomprehension or misapprehension of the reality of your being. You are always self-aware and identified with body and mind by choice. But you claim, I am the body. Now what to do with this kind of a thing? Isn't this a fact? Tell me. See your own, check and see. How we manage to do this is a real mystery. This is what is called adhyas. Can anybody doubt his own self-awareness? Tell me. That I exist. Does anybody say, I'm not sure if I exist? Nobody can say that. I always exist, and that existence is of the nature of self-awareness, isn't it? I'm aware deeply. Then I identify with the thoughts in my mind, with objects. The body also is an object. And I claim I am such and such a person, I have this identity. Although those are claims of the mind. But my sense of being is never invested in any of these. It is only pure awareness. The rest is all made up. See, what you make up, I told you, you need to defend, you need to protect, you need to hold it erect. What you don't make up, what is always there, will ever be there, whether even if you don't pay attention to it, it is ever there. So the self is like that. Whether you study Vedanta or you don't, it is there. Whether you know it or not, it is there. So you see, this is what is permanently existing like this, whose intrinsic nature is consciousness. When you stand on that, you get the greatest strength, because it is the only real thing, it is the only permanent thing. That is why Atma Jnana gives Atma Bal. Then you are happy to be independent of everything. You can bring anything into your life, but you know very well your happiness does not depend on that thing. So isn't this a great thing in life, if we can do this? See, maturity in life means no matter where you are and what you are doing, you get this inner independence. It is not required that you run away to the Himalayas. Only in Pangot you will get it. No such thing. If the mind is prepared, anywhere you will get it. Here you do the enough sadhana so as to bring that experience wherever you are. So this is a perfect process. See, without this, whole life, it is one of silent agony. Because it is an actual fact. Somebody has said this, some thinker has said this, that most men, they lead lives of quiet, deep agony, quiet and deep agony. And because they don't have a solution to it, they don't know how to get out of this. And I remember Mark Twain once said that my life is full of miseries, most of which never happened. You keep cooking it up in your mind because of your fears, your worries. When there is no rootedness in the reality, the unreal will simply lash you. So this is what he is saying. You see, all notions, all dualities, good, evil, right, wrong, and we are all these polarities of life with which our mind it's full of that. It only belongs to your mind. It does not belong to your soul, he is saying. So give it only that much importance. Any deep-rooted emotion, if you allow it to touch your soul and become the reality of your life, that is misery. See, really intelligent people, they know how to forgive, they know how to accept, they know how to adapt, while unintelligent people don't know all this. They will mix up with their emotions in their minds and strong reactions to everything. So then, is that a way to live? Huh? You see, joy is your nature, but misery is your making. You're making it up. And you feel you will enjoy it also. So, yeah, strange phenomenon this is, but it happens only with the human species. That you can make up anything in your mind and believe it 100%. So let's go to mantra number 8. Rupacha guna doshabhyam vivikta kevala chiti saivanu vartate rupa rasadinam vikalpane. See, kevala chiti vivikta, you must be able to distinguish absolute or pure consciousness. Chiti means pure consciousness. You must, vivikta means to make it distinct or to discriminate between pure consciousness and rupat cha guna doshabhyam, and form and notions of good and evil which belong to your vikalpas, the cognitions in your mind which are being illumined by reflected consciousness. See, anuvartate means which stand behind or witness of the cognitions of your mind. Rupa rasadinam, of form, taste, your perceptions. What's the difference between perception and cognition? Perception means what you see through the senses. Cognition is what you see through your mind. It includes thought, emotion, will, all of that, and your perceptions also. So both of these are being illumined by the Atman standing behind, but the reflected awareness in your mind appears to be illumining all of this. So you must be able to distinguish between these two. This is what he is saying. See, let me read the entire meaning. The absolute pure consciousness is distinct from the objects of senses as well as from the notions of good and evil attributed to them by the intellect. Yet it is the soul, it stands behind the cognition of them all as the sole illuminer. Again and again he is giving us the same idea. Try to find out what is the source of your perception and cognition. There is one video called Epistemology of Cognition, which I think you must see as part of homework for this class. Epistemology of Cognition. It is there in the yoga psychology videos. How exactly you perceive and cognize, and what are all the physical, physiological, psychological, metaphysical processes involved. Now the next two mantras, no, they are very interesting. See, I told you he also gives the methodology for finding the witness consciousness. So it is there here. Let's go into this ninth mantra. Kshane kshane anyatha bhuta dhi vikalpas chitir natu muktasu sutravat buddhi vikalpeshu chiti sthita. Dhi vikalpa are the modifications of your dhi, of your intellect, which means the vrittis created by your intellect. Anyatha bhuta, they are all variables, kshane kshane, at every moment. Tu natu chiti, they are not pure consciousness. They are the vrittis of your intellect. The chiti sthita, the pure consciousness, is inherent buddhi vikalpeshu, in and through the modifications of the intellect, like sutravat, like the thread which is the common factor in a string of pearls. Muktasu sutravat. Isn't there a thread in a pearl necklace? Thread or whatever, silver thread maybe, golden thread. And then there's a string of pearls. So the pearls are nothing but the modifications of your intellect. But there is something that ties them together, that coordinates them. And that is the self, the chiti, the pure consciousness. Now, check and see how true this is. The modifications of the intellect are changing from moment to moment. Never so the pure consciousness, though it permeates through all those modifications like the thread in a string of pearls. It is a fact. You see, if this coordinating string was not there, my every thought and every preceding and succeeding thought would have had no connection. Yeah. I would not have claimed, oh, I am thinking this, now I am thinking this, and this is the connection. I would have done no such thing. They would have been absolutely different cognitions, unconnected to me. The fact that I know they are mine and I am going to draw knowledge out of these connections itself means there is a coordinating factor running through them. That is the sakshi, the witness consciousness, pure consciousness. It runs through all the modifications of your intellect, like a thread, like a string. Musutre Maniganaiva. In the Bhagavad Gita, God is described like that. Here the self is being described like that. Whenever you say my cognition, you are only acknowledging this fact. Isn't it? See, any thought appearing in your mind, don't you say it is my thought? We say that. So what makes you say it is my thought? It is not, I don't say it's just a thought floating on in some mind. Somewhere, you know, there is something underlying the thought, which is making it mine. So this is what he's saying, that there is an underlying thread of unity and connection between all the modifications of your intellect. And these modifications can be very great, isn't it? Intellect is constantly, and not just intellect, the manas. We have all these faculties, the memories, yeah, always. But you see, there is an underlying thread which makes it feel like my memory, my thoughts, my emotion, my will. No matter what the will is doing, what your thoughts are doing, you know it's happening to me.
So manas is the cognition part of the mind, Mataji?
Manas is the sankalpa vikalpatmika, which means the cogitative aspect of your mind. Thinking the pros and cons of things. Intelligence, dhi, is the determinative faculty of your mind. And chittam is the memory bank, which is constantly unfolding memories. Sanskars and vrittis which you have stored in the past are getting unfolded in the mind. So all this constitutes your mental life. But the fact that you feel it's happening to me, and you always feel like that, it is due to the self. Remember, all these comparisons or analogies, they are to do with jada objects. Yes. The screen does not participate in the pictures moving on it. The screen is just the substratum behind, but yourself, actually it is not participating, but it reflects in your mind, and the mental awareness gets invested in the thought process. So your thought becomes enlivened and I lay claim to it. So it's quite a complicated process if you actually see. That's why the sakshi is not seen at all, because it has already become my thought. The ego has come. When the ego comes, kicks in, you will not try to trace the I, the real I.
Ego is mainly feeling and emotion.
No, ego is not feeling and emotion. See, they are all parts of mind. Feelings, emotions, thoughts, will, all are mind. But the ego lays claim to that being mine. Chidabhas, you can say. It is due to reflected consciousness, which is Chidabhas. But the origin of all this entire thing, it lies in the sakshi. If I told you intrinsic existence and consciousness belongs to the Atman alone, all these are like puppets. The string is being moved by the inner illuminator. And we don't go to that. level. Yeah, Kachami is to do with the ego again. The ego which is absolutely unexplored or uninvestigated. So you see, our mental life is being analyzed here, and then he is telling us that go to the source of your mental activity. See, the next verse is connected to this verse, so I will go into that. The 10th verse. Muktabhiravritam sutram muktayor madhya ikshate tathavrita vikalpaischit spashta madhye vikalpayoho. Sutram avritam muktabhi. The thread is covered by the pearls. Ikshate, it is perceived. Muktayo madhye, in between two pearls. See how beautifully he has put it. Tatha chit avrita. So also the pure consciousness is hidden by what? By vikalpaihi. By your vikalpas, the modifications of your intellect. But prakashate spashta madhye vikalpayoho. But it can be caught. Yes, it can be, it shines forth as it were between two modifications. So if you stop modifications, you will see the underlying thread. I told you he also gives the method to actually know the self. This is the uniqueness of this text. This one is really beautiful. That's why when I first read this, I was so overwhelmed because he is nowhere else he is giving it out so clearly. Let me tell you the meaning. The thread covered over by the pearls in a string can be seen in between two pearls. Similarly, the pure consciousness also, though hidden by the modifications of the intellect, can be clearly perceived in between any two modifications. So instead of just paying attention to the modifications and getting carried away by them, learn to separate them, learn to stall them, and you will see the underlying thread. The actual method as he has given out. You see, that is why I always say yoga is a help to Vedanta. This is yogastu chitta vritti nirodh, which means the vrittis of your mind, you are not encouraging them but separating them so as to see the underlying thread. That nirodh, that power of stopping thought is required in order to go beyond thought. Otherwise, the modifications of your intellect will keep you busy throughout the day, isn't it? They are carrying you everywhere. And you are very busy. That's why you feel exhausted also. You feel tired. It's only because the mind is so chanchal, always active. So we must learn to handle the mind correctly. Stop it, stall it at least. And then you will see the underlying awareness there. So see, the method is very clearly put. Now it's all to do with practice. Remember, Advaita Jnana comes as a result of Manonash. This may appear terrible, Manonash, why should I destroy my mind? What we are trying to say is, the fundamental substratum of your mind, that which makes your mind is the self. Because it is the source of your awareness, mental awareness. So you have to put down the activities of your mind, the modifications of your mind in order to touch that source. That is why Manonash. Yes, Manovritti Nash. See, mind is nothing but vrittis. So Manovritti Nash is Manonash. And what it will lead to is Tattvajnana. Manonashat Tattvajnana. As long as mind is allowed to flourish on unanalyzed and uncontrolled thinking, it will not come to this level of knowledge. See, they are all to do with the objective world, isn't it? Scientific discoveries and inventions, they are all discovering relative truths. Those are all the modifications of the higher intelligence, you can say, of your intelligence only. But here we are trying to see who is the one who is illumining that dhi. Yeah, who is the one who is illuminating the modifications of that mind. So self-knowledge, the very nature of, see, this is the difference between science and Vedanta. One is dealing with anatma vastu. Science is dealing with anatma vastu. And you are, in Vedanta, you are dealing with atma vastu. The purpose is atmagnan, self-knowledge. So, the praman, the actual method will differ. You can't say both are the same. Don't, you should not abuse the praman. Both have different methodologies for gaining the truth they are seeking, but both are very valid approaches and very scientific approaches to the reality of existence. See, this outer reality that we see, the objective world, it is a product of your equipment. Are you realizing this? This is very difficult unless you have learned to think Vedantically. When you understand that everything that I perceive is actually name and form being superimposed on awareness, and the interpretation is entirely by my mind, even color is not color. Yes, and whatever I call a tree, whatever, it is name and form given by us. What happens is, when you understand objective reality to be like that, you will see that a number of factors are responsible for me to perceive a certain thing. So that is why it is called parokshanubhuti, which means there are a number of factors which make me perceive that thing as that thing. It is heavily mediated knowledge. But the self-knowledge is no mediation is required. Because does anybody require anything to know he is self-aware? Anything required? You don't need a mirror to be placed in front of you to see. You need a mirror to see who you are, how you are, but you don't need a mirror to know who you are. How you look, how your face looks, you require a mirror, but to know who you are, you don't require a mirror. But still you can say Vedanta is like a mirror trying to help you see the self. It is like that. And then what is then the purpose of this objective world, objective creation? I found this very beautiful bit in Ramana Maharshi's works. You know, one day somebody asked him that why is this universe there? Then suddenly Ramana Maharshi asked him, can you see your eyes? He said, no. What do you require to see your eyes? I require a mirror. Then he said, well, this creation is the mirror in which the eye sees itself. So this entire objective panorama spread out in front of us, it is to help us understand how we are contributing in this manifestation and how we are part of it. You are part of what you see, and it is your consciousness ultimately that manifests or reveals everything. So you are not separate from this creation. All our desire to be unique and exclusive and all this, it is meaningless when you come to actual Vedanta. Because the reality of everything is only Brahman. That's why you see in traditional religions, they always told you, put down the ego, worship only God and all this. Why they tell us all this is, finally you should understand that is the nature of existence. Nothing is exclusive because everything is a manifestation of Brahman. When you live like that, you will live really gently and maturely on this earth. Otherwise, you will live in a, you know how we'll live. I don't have to say that. Chasing something which is meaningless. And at the end of life, all regrets, a life of regrets. So we will stop here and we'll continue tomorrow. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.